Hal Steinbrenner decided to go into a press conference today and almost play the poverty card. Now, people are wondering, did the Yankees make $700 million in profit or did they lose some? Tune in for the rest of the video to find out the questions and the answers that Hal Steinbrenner gave the media in his Zoom press conference today.
Downtown goes Frazier.
Welcome back to another episode of Life After the Show. Now, I had to hop down and record this episode immediately after I saw and read some of the comments that people were saying about Hal Steinbrenner's Zoom press conference that he held today. Now, I love doing this episode, right? I love this episode because this episode is so fresh and it's so organic, the things that these people are tweeting about what he said, some of the questions that they were asked, because a lot of them are valid, right? I mean, if you're searching up and down on Twitter and you just type in Hal Steinbrenner, you see an assortment of tweets, and a lot of them have to do with the fact that a man that owns a team worth $8.2 billion is kind of crying poverty today. So I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly the thing that he was trying to do. He did kind of bitch a little bit about money. I think that something that we need to talk about that's super important in this press conference is that somehow, some way, people have this information. And I think information being withheld to certain times is certainly something that you could weaponize, right? So I haven't seen anything about this particular comment that I'm going to make or question that I'm going to ask, but it does seem interesting to me that it was asked during free agency, because free agency will be the time that he's supposed to go out and spend a lot. So let's just get to the questions. I don't know how to say this guy's last name, but all I know is that I'm pretty sure that he tweeted me, and I'm pretty sure that I ignored him, but maybe I didn't. Chris Kirschner. There you go. Think I've seen that mug on my timeline before. But anyways, it seems to me that Chris was given information. I don't know if he came up with it on his own. I don't know who gave him this information. But the basis of his question was, when asked about the Yankees making more than $700 million in revenue, and is it fair to assume that he's making a profit? Hal Steinbrenner responded by saying, no, it's not fair, actually. Chris followed it up with, you're taking a loss, ? And Hal said, I don't want to get into it, but that's not a fair statement or an accurate statement. Everybody wants to talk about revenues. They need to talk about our expenses, including the $100 million expense to the city of New York that we have to pay every February 1st. He goes on to kind of allude to the fact that he had to make that payment during COVID. Everything adds up in a hurry. Nobody spends more money, I don't believe. Nobody spends more money on player development, scouting, performance science. These all start to add up. If you want to go to look at the revenues, you got to somehow try to figure out the expense side as well. You might be surprised. So let me just dive into that, because that's a lot to unpack. And I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I do think that some of it is worth mentioning, right? Let's just talk about the $700 million profit that might actually be true, might actually not be true. It could be somewhere in that range, could be higher, could be lower. We don't know. If indeed the New York Yankees did profit $700 million, and then free agency comes around and Hal Steinbrenner does not spend anything like a man that just owned a company that made $700 million in profit, despite spending $319 million, paying $100 million every February 1st, and any other expenses that he has on the hook, because you know that he's got plenty more to do between the paychecks of workers, et cetera, et cetera. So it is fair to say that the New York Yankees have a lot of money that they're allocating towards a lot of things. I think that one thing that they need to get a little bit better at is what exactly they're spending that money on. Now, if you have a department of scouting, player performance, player science, all of that, and you're saying that nobody spends more money than you, make sure it's going towards a good cause. Because all I'm seeing, between being somebody that was in the system and now somebody that's out of the system, all I'm seeing is people wanting to know what the hell they're teaching these players in the time that they have them in that system. And I do think that they have a lot of cool gadgets. I mean, and they have something on the minor league side of their spring training complex where basically you can go in there. There's millions of cameras, not really. There's probably like 100 in there, but they have force plates in the ground. They basically have everything that can tell you what kind of player you are, how you stack up amongst the rest of the group. They can kind of find diamonds in the rough, needles in the haystack of what players actually bring to the table, like physically, performance wise, and they call that place the gas station. I thought that was a sick name. I think that's a really good investment. I think that's one of the better things that they've built. But when you go into the gas station, there's a lot of stuff in there that as a player that's not used to being someone that has all of this information at their disposal, it can become a little bombarding in regards to like you lose just the playing side of things, right? You start to think about the things that the Yankees are highlighting or the things that they want you to change. And it ultimately kind of like puts you in a state of like, I'm not really free flowing anymore as a player because now I've got this thought up here that's definitely taking away the thought of just like focusing on the task at hand, which is either throwing a strike, ripping a curveball, hitting a fastball, whatever the situation or whatever type of player you are. But I think that sometimes when you have all of these things in place, like Hal is talking about, it can be confusing to the players. Players don't always need all that information. And if you are a player for the New York Yankees, there is nothing but information between the amount of scouting reports that you get, how in depth the scouting reports are. Whenever you're standing in the outfield, you got position player cards on where to go, what coach to look at. What I mean, it's so much. You have sheets left in your locker that tell you every pitch that the pitcher's thrown and every count and every single scenario, and it gets a little overwhelming. So, I think that's where they have some people in place. They have guys that are a little bit younger that can be the middleman in the analytical department that kind of like bridge the gap between the players, the coaches, and the front office, and how they can portray the messages and how they can just display all of this information without like overwhelming players. But when you have an organization that spends nothing but more money apparently than any other org in that department, it can be hard. I mean, it really can, like I don't know. I was never a guy that wanted an overload of stuff because I felt like once I got to that point, it just became a little confusing. And then you're in those moments and you're thinking about what the overload of information was. And then you forget. And then you question if like you're remembering it right. And then it's just like, damn, I didn't even think about the fact that I'm in the batter's box and I got a pitch coming my way. So maybe spend a little bit more money on the interpreters and the people that can help facilitate all this information, whether it's good information or bad information, and just help your players know what to do with it. And ultimately, like make sure that the money that you're spending in that department is worth it because you don't need all this information. It's very simple in terms of like see ball, hit ball, throw strikes, don't make bad decisions on the base pass, catch the fly balls, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I feel like you could kind of maybe spend a little bit less money in that department versus kind of like making it a little bit of a spectacle of like, oh, well, we spend more money in this area than anyone else. And then somehow when those guys get called up to the big leagues, people are questioning like what they were even doing in the minor leagues the entirety of their time down there because they get up there and they look shell shocked in some areas that they should know baseball wise. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. Wanted to just address that one. Um, Brian Hoke, good guy. Brian Hoke, Hal Steinbrenner said the payroll was $319 million in 2025. Would it be ideal if it went down? Of course. But does that mean that's going to happen? Of course not. We want to field a team we know can win a championship or we believe could win a championship. So I think if you're a Yankees fan digesting exactly what he said right there, like obviously any of us watching the video that I'm making right now can understand the sentiment of it would be ideal if the payroll went down because $319 million paying your employees to not win a championship is a lot of money. Now, I think that Hal Steinbrenner knows more than anyone that if you want to compete in today's MLB climate, teams like the Dodgers and the Mets, even though the Mets don't win, but the Dodgers for sure already have X amount on the books. It's not coming off. And they sure as hell know that they're going to spend on the best players and try to go out and win another championship. So I think it's positive to hear that because Hal did not necessarily say that the team is going to drop the payroll. Anything can happen. I think if you're looking at the current state of where the Yankees are at right now, and then you think about the fact that Trent Grisham just came along, got 22 million, and then you're wondering as a Yankees fan, like, okay, a guy like Trent gets 22 million, and then we add X amount more to the payroll. Like, are the Yankees trying to stay above this? Are they trying to stay below this? Are they okay going up to here? Like, it's all questions that only like really two people can answer, and that's Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman. And I don't see anything out there that answered necessarily with confidence of like, yeah, we're gonna have this number and that's the number we're gonna try to aim for. Maybe I've missed it. I'll try to do a better job at finding it if it's out there, but I didn't really see it. So I'm mentioning all of this because if the $700 million in revenue is or revenue profit is true, and how Steinbrenner's trying to act like he doesn't want to go above the $300+ million threshold again, that's gonna really bother some people. It's gonna really bother some people because if you are trying to be smart with what you're spending your money on, giving 22 million to a guy that maybe he's not gonna get you over the hump, but just fills the position, and then you're hoping that he has another breakout year. Breakout years are hard to have. I mean, obviously, he only had one of them. Career 218 hitter, hit like 235, 30 plus homers, had a great season. But to replicate that again is not easy, especially given the fact that it's only a 1 year deal and he knows he's got to do it again. And it's not going to be easy. So if 700 million in profit is true and then the Yankees don't want to go above a certain threshold, it's just going to make fans really upset with the fact that they allocated that money towards something that they probably didn't think was necessary. I really think that that's the difference between the Yankees and the Dodgers in a lot of departments is that yes, they both have extremely high payrolls, but if you go like pound for pound in the rotation and in the like the players, it feels like if the Dodgers are spending money, they're spending it more wisely, right? Like the Yankees will go out and they'll put money on the books and they'll go out and they'll get some good players, but I feel like every free agency or every trade deadline that comes around and there's times to acquire like new talent, like yeah, they acquire new talent, but they don't acquire talent where you're like maybe there's one or two a year, the Max Fried signing, the Carlos Rodon, the Garrett Cole, like those are awesome. I'm not trying to knock any of those, but like they don't they don't do what the Dodgers are doing, like pound for pound, right? Like the Dodgers get Shohei, the Dodgers get Yamamoto, the Dodgers get Tyler Glass now, the Dodgers get Blake Snell, Teoscar Hernandez, Freddie Freeman. Like you can just go up and down that lineup and that rotation, and you can't find a weak spot. And they go out and they get all of the premier players because the Dodgers give their players the best chance to win a championship. So I'm saying all of this because if the $700 million is true, you've got to spend that money on players that make sense. There is a lot of free agents out there that could significantly help your team. And if you made $700 million in profit, go out and spend it on these guys and get them over the hump and make sure that you close that gap between you and the Dodgers. You know, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. If you as an owner, and I'm not an owner, but if you as an owner want to go out and shut the people up that keep bombarding you with questions that you're tired of answering, then maybe just change it up a little bit. Get the players that everybody wants and just accept that you made $700 million in profit, allegedly. So let's just move off that because I'm spending a lot of time on the 700 million, but it's kind of like firing me up as I'm going because now I'm like thinking if I were a Yankees fan and I knew that he made all that money and he doesn't want to spend X amount of money, but he made all that money, that's tough. That would be tough to digest. So we're not gonna probably get anything that shows that what the books look like, what the expenses are of exactly what the Yankees are using that money towards every year. But I don't know. I think that another thing that's like super interesting is how Steinbrenner, again, this is from Chris Kirschner. Hope I'm saying that name right. He asked Hal Steinbrenner about his quote at the beginning of the year about how it's difficult for owners to spend like the Dodgers, and he wondered if it would pay off for them. Now that it has, does it change his thinking of how the Yankees approach the offseason? It's a fair question. because Hal did have some comments to say in regards to basically like does spending equal winning? I don't know. And it showed that it did. It really did. I mean, if you think about it, like I read something that said Shohei Ohtani's entire contract has already been paid back to the Dodgers and more. So he's basically free at this point. You could assume that Yamamoto's probably in the same books, given the fact that everybody from Japan is following those two and they're diehard fans and they want to watch those guys play, and Shohei's the biggest star, and then Yamamoto did what he did, and then all of a sudden Dodgers are World Series champions. So this is what Hal had to say to that. If there's a correlation between spending the most money and winning a championship, I still think it's a weak correlation sample size of data. But they earned every bit of it. They struggled with injuries throughout the season, which I did talk about in the same quote, but they got healthy at the right time. The rotation got healthy, and when that rotation is healthy, they're tough to beat. That's something that I want to talk about, okay? Because I keep saying it all day long. If you're going to spend money, spend it in the right place. Now, let's just talk about this, okay? Let's just talk about it. So, the Yankees starting rotation versus the Dodgers starting rotation is night and day difference for me. Night and day, right? So, I want to put them side by side. Um Again, it's like comparing apples to oranges a little bit, but the depth of it is not. Okay, so let's just talk about the Yankees rotation, right? Carlos Rodon, really good. Max Fried, really good. Will Warren, to be determined, can be really good, but he's still really young. Clark Smith, he was hurt most of the year. Garrett Cole, out the whole year. Luis Hill, out most of the year. And then you've got Cam Slitler, right? Emerging potential ace. So all of those names. And then you go over to the Dodgers rotation, right? Blake Snell, wow. Yamamoto, wow. Tyler Glasnow, hardest pitcher to hit off of in baseball. Shohei Ohtani, Gavin Stone, and Emmett Sheehan. And then you got Clayton Kershaw, who was in that rotation. And it's just like pound for pound, when you're in the playoffs and you're sitting here and you're a Yankees fan and you're wondering when game 3 rolls around and game 4 rolls around and we've got Will Warren or Luis Hill or even a guy like Cam that's like trying to make a name for themselves, like they still kind of are question marks in their own regards. All respect to them, like for real, I'm not coming after anybody, but they are like question marks in regard to the fact that they're like relatively young starters. Now, if you look at the Dodgers rotation, like Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani, Sheehan's like the only one in there that's like relatively young and new. And then they had Roki Sasaki that went from his role to like closer, and like they just have the depth, but they have established guys. Now, obviously, the Yankees have Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, and Garrett Cole. Only 2 of the 3 were available this year. Next year, you will have 3 of the 3 available once, I guess, Rodon's starting the season kind of injured, but eventually you could assume that they'll have all 3 of those, right? So the rotation looks completely different whenever you put those 3 in there, because those are your 3 dogs that no doubt they're throwing, and then probably Cam rolls in somewhere as the 4 starter in those rotations if he's healthy and if he continues to do what he's doing. But I'm just saying this because all the money that the Dodgers spend, like they spend it more wisely. They go out, they get the stars, they put the stars in the Dodgers uniform, and then they win the World Series. Instead of the Yankees kind of like went from being what the Dodgers are doing, where they go out and they get all the big stars and then they win the World Series. But now like the Yankees are kind of like going out and getting like 1 or 2 stars every other year, and then for the first time kind of like letting their young guys get a chance. But the young guys getting a chance is kind of what's holding them back, because none of them have like emerged as true frontline starters yet. They've had success, but they haven't fully emerged as like, this is our guy and we're going to die on it. So I'm saying all of this because the Dodgers seem to be like someone that Hal Steinbrenner is being asked a lot about, because they spend and then they win in their development. And everyone seems to wonder, like, how are the Dodgers cooking up this perfect recipe every time, but my Yankees can't? So it's fair to say that like the Dodgers have kind of put themselves in a whole different like tax bracket, and a whole different like level of success expectation as the other teams versus like the Yankees have the 27 World Series that they hold on to from the past, and everyone just kind of that's just what they're living off of, like they're living off of what that used to be like, and they're dying for like a taste of what it is again. And I do believe that, like the Yankees can win. They have a really good roster, but they have to like allocate those funds towards things that make sense. I'm just repeating it, but you can't just go out there every offseason and just spend a little bit of money or take on contracts like $32 million dollars over 2 years for a defensive first third baseman and then pass up on guys like Alex Bregman that will be free agents because you made a move just to for like the hell of it almost. So I mean, I don't love those moves. I really don't. So I'm kind of hoping that as a person that's like being critical of them, that I can not have to be as critical and see some moves that really, really make sense. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, like I don't really know like what the tone was of majority of these like questions and comments that were asked to Hal. I always think it's like fascinating to hear how people talk about him. I do think it's probably tough to always hear the comments of like, well, if George was still around, this is how it would be because his dad ran it this way and he's running it this way. Like I always like I do like sympathize with that's probably not easy to hear. I don't think it's entirely fair to hear. We're in a different time of baseball, but I mean it is the question. I think the question's semi-valid that like maybe George would be running the team a little bit how the Dodgers are running it right now because that's how he used to run his team back in the day. So I feel bad saying that, but I mean, it's hard to kind of like come after a guy that spent $319 million dollars in a season, but you can come at the talent that he put on that team and the money that he put in those positions to kind of like hold him back from maybe future money. Again, I think it's going to be a super interesting offseason to continue to look at. Um, Dodgers I just keep seeing more Dodgers stuff. Asked about the Dodgers winning back-to-back championships with the highest payroll, and if that's what it takes. And then he said, "There's nothing low about my payroll and the Mets payroll, and look what happened to us." Again, I think it's fine. I mean, if you want to go out and you want to spend so much money, you better make sure that money makes sense. And if you're going to put money on your books, make sure it's good money. So that's what the Dodgers are doing. So I think that the basis of this entire video for me was to kind of just put out there again, like Hal Steinbrenner did his press conference. We're kind of unpacking what he's talking about. He's screaming poverty. That's all I'm seeing. He's complaining about the fact that he has to pay $100 million every February 1st to the city of New York. I would complain too. But if I had 700 million potentially, I wouldn't. I mean, I probably still care, but I don't know. I just think that if you're going to take positives from this press conference, something that you can take is that Hal Steinbrenner did not necessarily say that the payroll was going down. That seems to be something that I'm taking a positive from is that they know, like he knows in the back of his mind that if the payroll goes down where they're at right now, that's not good enough. Like they still have to add a few arms. He did reference a little bit in regards to like they've got some outfield options. I think he's talking internally about Dominguez and Spencer Jones. I think it's I, I think you're in a bad spot if those are your starting left fielders next year to start the season. I don't think that you could honestly say that the Yankees got any better if they don't at least try to go out and find a guy to play over those guys. I do see the comments in my sections at times where people are like, I'm surprised that a guy like yourself is advocating for veteran talent. But like, I think that the veteran talent probably is a little bit better than like the emerging talent right now. And I think that if you don't want to miss out on the opportunity for a championship window with the players that you currently have, that you do have to put some players in place that are a little bit older and more experienced. And you can honestly look at the numbers that they've put in the past and expect that it's going to be something like that. I will be completely interested to see if the Yankees add more talent in the rotation, and what that talent looks like, because all offseason I've just been harping on the best players that they can sign because they are within the realm of their possibilities. And I think that if you want to go pound for pound with the best talent out there, which is the Dodgers, you've got to make sure that you've got a lineup and a rotation as deep as theirs to be able to go round for round with them and game for game and honestly feel good about the lineup that you're putting out there because everybody knows that as fans or even the people constructing the lineup when you see who you're going up against and you start to wonder like is this lineup good enough to beat theirs? And it's probably not. And I know that they put their lineup up against some of the other teams that they played against, and they definitely knew that, like spot for spot, they're weaker in this area and weaker in that area. And I do hope that if the $700 million in profit is true, that they use some of that money to kind of fill those spots that they certainly need to be able to go further in the postseason. And just hopefully, all you can hope for is that they do spend most of their time going towards premier talent this offseason and building on that championship window that they do have because every single year these players are getting older and you've got a guy like Aaron Judge that's on your team and he's only getting better and how many more seasons is he going to just continuously be able to put up video game numbers is to be determined. Obviously it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down any time, but franchise is worth $8 billion. So I think that you could afford to put a little bit more out there. And I'm not saying to go out and spend $400 million, but buddy, if we're going over 300 million this year, let's make sure that 300 million is worth it. Okay. Don't just put guys on your roster just to appease people. Put game changing players on your roster and put them there for a purpose, and that is to win the World Series. Now, I think I'm done ranting. I really did enjoy this one. This one kind of like helped me get some stuff out there. This one was this one was good. So I felt like a fan. I felt like a true New York fan today, kind of expressing my disdain with a little bit of comments that I was reading. So wish that I was able to be a part of that Zoom call. I would have loved to ask a question. I am wondering as time goes on, will I fit the bill for a media pass? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. But at least I'm trying to give you guys something that's worth listening to and something that you guys think is an interesting take, given the fact that I was in that locker room. I have had conversations with some people that might be decision makers, and I continue to believe that I'm going to keep doing this for a long time coming. Now, I do want to say something because if you made it this far in the video, then you are a true Life After the Show fan. So thank you if you made it to this part. And if you did, comment about it because that'll show me that you made it this far. I think that I'm going to try to get on a schedule of posting Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm trying to get consistent. I'm trying to grow, and I'm ultimately just trying to see what we've got. So maybe Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are going to be the routes that I'm going to go for posting days, and look forward to seeing what you guys have to say about this video. So thank you for watching.